Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you see me? Fantastic. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm JB Bagoo. I'm here for our Legislative Awareness Day, Part 2. I am the Baltimore City Association for the Deaf Vice President, and I will be serving as your moderator for this evening. So thank you so much for being here for tonight's event. So the purpose of tonight's event is to have a dialogue, and we're going to be introducing our panelists. And they will be providing their unique insights specifically on the topic of sign language interpreter licensure. We have 4 panelists with us this evening, and I will ask each one of our panelists to introduce themselves. At the completion of introductions, we will move forward and start with our panel discussion. So if everybody's ready, let's begin. So the first person I'd like to call to introduce themselves is Cheryl.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl Emery. I currently reside in Colorado. I am the former director for the Division on Deaf and Hard of Hearing for the state of Michigan. I was formerly responsible for writing the rules and regulations for the interpreter licensure bill for that state. That bill passed in 2014. It's been almost 15 years since that was written, lots of meetings, a lot of discussion was involved with the development and including the community for the regulation of interpreters. I've also experienced working with interpreters with RID. They were heavily involved and we heavily relied upon their expertise. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Our next panelist will be Shane.
Good evening. I'm Shane Feldman. I'd like to provide a little bit of background about myself. I've worked with various organizations throughout my career, including the National Association of the Deaf for 9 years. I've worked as an interpreter advocate in various roles with various states, with the FCC in regards to VRS. I became the CEO for the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf for 2 years, as well as working on various member issues and supporting interpreters. At the same time, I was serving as CEO. I was involved with the new testing and the development of that test and assessment for the interpreters that will soon be released by RID. Also was involved with NCA, and that is now under discussion again. So that's just some examples of my work and my career. I then went to CSD, Communication Services for the Deaf, worked there for several years on the interpreter platform, supporting the agencies and various businesses. So again, I've worked in various capacities within the interpreter field. I am now the CEO for Innov Strategies. Again, our goal is to provide strategic planning and leadership development and CEO search placement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane, for that introduction. The next panelist we'd like to introduce is Richie.
I'm Richie Bryant. I am currently working as a staff interpreter at Gallaudet University. Worked there for several years as a certified interpreter. I've been involved with the local, state, and national level in various capacities in different organizations. I've also served on the board of RID from 2014 to 2017. At that time, certification. There was a lot of changes with certification. There's a lot of challenges that we faced. I've also been involved with 2 different organizations in regards to testing and development of interpreter evaluations. And that's just a little bit about myself.
Thank you, Richie. Our 4th panelist is Bobby.
Hello, I'm Bobby Beth Scoggins. I've been involved in the field of interpreting for several years, probably since the 70s. Started with Texas Society for Interpreters for the Deaf, but my direct involvement really began with the licensure and certification of interpreters in the state of Kentucky. At that time, licensure was passed in 1998, as well as a law in 2003 that I oversaw and wrote the regulations and rules with many stakeholders throughout the state of Kentucky's involvement. This was drafted and became law, but it formally established a board that oversees the practitioners of interpreters. Again, there are 7 of them, and we would provide support to that board. I also have experience with testing through NAD and RID in various groups, and that has led to today and the testing process as we know it today. So I've been involved in the national level with testing and certifying interpreters, currently working for the Texas School for the Deaf. So thank you very much. As the Director of Educational and Statewide Resources.
Thank you, Bobby. So now that you've met our panelists, you see that they have various areas of expertise as it relates to interpreting and interpreter licensure. We've invited them to come together today. And this is being hosted by not only the Baltimore City Association for the Deaf, but the Howard County Association for the Deaf and the Prince George's County Association for the Deaf, with the cooperation of ODHH. We've brought together tonight's evening for a rich dialogue about the topic of sign language interpreter licensure. So we have some pre-prepared questions for our panelists. Each panelist will have 4 minutes. We want to be cognizant of time for them to respond to the questions. If we start to go a little long, I will give a 2-minute and a 1-minute warning. And if time permits, I will ask additional follow-up questions to our panelists. Okay, are we ready? Oh, just to add, I also want to let everybody know there will be no Q&A this evening. However, at the conclusion of our panel discussion, we will have an opportunity for a polling. It is called a Mentimeter. We will do that at the conclusion of our panel discussion, so be prepared for that. So as I mentioned, we have questions ready, so I will call our panelists to please come up on screen for our first question. Okay, thank you again so much for working with us this evening. We really appreciate your time and being here with us. So my first question that I'd like to pose to our panel. In the JCR, as it is written, there are 5 different possible policy options that have been outlined. What would your recommendations be in terms of which policy options you would pick? Bobby, Beth, would you be willing to answer first?
Sure, thank you. Not a problem, a little bit put on the spot to go first, but absolutely. After doing a little bit of research and looking at the town hall meetings discussions from last evening, there are several policy options that you have. And there are several meetings that you need to have before you make that decision as well. For the state of Maryland, I think it's critical that you develop a process that really fits your state. And I believe there's a lot to be learned from others. There's a lot of framework out there. You could establish what works for you. and how to regulate the profession of interpreters within our state. Again, the state of Maryland is a very strong state, a very bold state, which means that they could be a leader in regulations. Again, that's a good thing. I think it's the right climate for that kind of licensure, but at the same time, you need to understand the difference between licensure and certification. A program can be directed by anyone, but licensure is something that you need to delve a little bit deeper on. Make sure your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and ensure that when this is written, that you have all of the stakeholders' involvement and agreement on this framework. It's important to work together to regulate licensure within the state. And that's how you can develop the best solution and the best fit for Maryland. Is one better than the other? I'm not sure. Again, my position here is that you need to do your homework. I think you really need to do your research, your due diligence to pick the best option and what best fits the state here.
Thank you, Bobby Beth. Cheryl, anything you'd like to add? Any thoughts about any of those 5 possible policy options that were outlined, or any suggestions you'd like to share? So as I looked over the policy options from the former bill, and that was bill number, let me find out here, 1064, the former bill that was proposed. I think that it was a strong bill. I think that it was a wonderful bill, but I do think it needed some additional tweaking in order to be as comprehensive as it needed to be. It was pretty complex. Everything was there within the body of that bill. That being said, my suggestion of the 5 policy options, I would recommend the second one. Reason being is the second option, in my opinion, seemed to be the least strict and have the most built-in flexibility. And with regulations, there needs to be some level of flexibility in order to manage any type of situations that are unforeseen. And I agree with Bobby Beth. It's very important that you include all of your potential stakeholders in the discussions. You also need to do your due diligence on what other states are doing and what they have incorporated into their state regulations. Again, I think with policy option number 2, how do I say? You get the necessary regulations as well as the flexibility you need at the same time. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you for emphasizing that specifically, policy option number 2. Thank you, Cheryl. I'll turn things over to Richie now. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share, or suggestions related to those 5 possible options from the JCR?
I agree with Bobby Beth and her perspective. I feel that at this time, I'm not quite sold on one option over the other. I think we do need to remain flexible. I think the priority is to avoid a patchwork approach. You don't want to have any gaps that later need to be filled. You would like to, instead, you should propose a cohesive bill. You don't want to focus on one area more than another. If you focus too much on the training of interpreters, you may miss another area that you overlooked. So again, I think doing your due diligence is important. It's a very unique area. Interpreters here are very transient. They cross state boundaries and jurisdictions quite easily and frequently. As someone mentioned previously, if an interpreter bill is too stringent, they may lose or gain interpreters. At the same time, if other states, if the surrounding states are too stringent, we may gain their interpreters. So again, we want to make sure that we're matching our community. Again, the field changes. And if we go through the legislative process, that takes time to make changes to said legislation. So in all honesty, I'm, again, thinking out loud here, but I think I'm going to support number 2.
Okay, thank you. I certainly think that's important for the sake of this discussion, and thank you for emphasizing that. Shane, is there any thoughts that you would like to add or suggestions in terms of the JCR report? Definitely, absolutely. And I thank everybody, it's very important to have a report like that. And before I forget, I forgot to mention, I'm a previous Maryland resident. I was a resident for 33 years. I was involved with the Maryland Association for the Deaf. I was on the board of MSD. I was also an advisory board chair in the past. So myself, having been a resident, I've seen firsthand the problems with interpreting in the state of Maryland. And I think it's very important for that reason, we have something in place to protect our consumers. I have many times, in the state of Maryland seen issues with unqualified and unskilled interpreters. So having that protection is key. Now, I'd like to outline some of the pros and cons for each of these policies. So for the first one, there is a board that provides oversight. This would be a group of subject matter experts who would develop those regulations, and they would also have the flexibility to make decisions when things changed in the field. As for example, as Richie Bryant mentioned with the moratorium, that would not have a negative impact in this case. It had a very negative impact on the states, and states had to react in real time. If a governing board has the flexibility to address things like an RID moratorium or changes to certification or a new certification, they can pivot and react in real time. So I think flexibility within a board, that kind of flexibility is key, and that's allowed in that first policy. Now, the negative is we have to make sure that board stays current. They can't be slow to make decisions. Time is oftentimes of the essence. So that's important. Now, for the second option, that involves legislation, and there's concerns about that. I recently am a transplant to Connecticut, and we have laws related to the regulations of certification and licensure, and they're very difficult to change when they're codified in law. It takes years. You have to go to hearings at the state government. Oftentimes, state legislators don't have any background knowledge, and it's not worth their time. Really and truly, it's better for the community to make decisions through a governing body like a board or ODHH itself that is, again, comprised of subject matter experts and knows what to do. To try and make changes legislatively is not an easy process. So the third policy option, that gives ODHH the regulatory authority to make decisions for either their staff, again, which is comprised of subject matter experts, which means, for example, currently the staff of ODHH is comprised of 3 people. Is that enough people? I don't think so. So you need to make sure that you have an adequate staff with the adequate tools to make those decisions if you're going to consider that versus a board. Now, the fourth one, doing an in-state assessment. Some concerns about that. It's very expensive to develop an assessment in-house. The pro of that is you get to decide your own standards, and you get to decide what qualified means. You have to make sure it's reliable and valid, and you have to make sure those standards are maintained. Oh, time. Okay. However, if you want to reach out and use, for example, a license from BEI, other people are then making decisions on the standards. However, that might be something that's acceptable for your state. And then you only are responsible for doing the rating and the training of those evaluators. And you could do that on a leveled system. But you have to trust another group like EIPA or RID or BEI to make decisions on what is deemed qualified or not qualified. So it's an issue of, do we trust somebody else to make those decisions, or would we rather do that ourselves. And then the last one, private right to action, has its positives and negatives as well. You have to educate the constituents of the state of Maryland that they have certain rights to go to litigation and so on and so forth. However, sometimes we know that's not the easiest thing to do, and having to hire attorneys, so forth and so on. I've been involved in legal rights work before, and it is not easy. So reaching out to the state, maybe they can move a little faster in making determinations and actions. In Colorado, they have private right to action laws there. So for example, if somebody sues a hospital for full-time access, that's a possibility, but it takes years and years for those lawsuits to affect change. So those are some of the pros and cons of those options. Wow, Shane, you have definitely a unique experience, and you're also well-versed in the Maryland system. So thank you so much for really expounding on each one of those policies. Thank you all for your thoughts on that. Any final comments for our first question from anybody? Cheryl, please.
I wanted to follow up with something that Shane just said. I do have experience working directly with the BEI.
Point of clarification, could somebody elaborate on what BEI is?
It's an evaluation for interpreters that was developed through the state of Texas. That exam itself depends on, again, it provides legal protection for people. Again, if you want to make a state exam, there's no exact right or wrong yet. At that time, it was labeled as a national level exam, but the BEI is a state exam, similar to it's not similar to a quality assessment. A QA itself is not always valid and reliable. So again, you may have 4 or 5 states that have already accepted the BEI, and it has been proven to be a reliable test and valid. And so that provides some legal protection. The key is in the law. For example, many states say that national certification from RID is acceptable, but that's very limiting. It's not providing flexibility to those states. For example, in Michigan, we accepted both the BEI, the EIPA, and the national certification from RID. Many people are not familiar with the EIPA, and that's an educational performance interpreter evaluation. Again, it's operated through Boys Town. So all of those could be options, but again, the key is flexibility. It's not quality assessment. It's really not, because that's not always valid. So you want to provide that legal protection for consumers.
Okay, Bobby, Beth, go right ahead. Okay, I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on that. So the national certification itself and state certification itself and QA, I think the important distinction is any certification that you want for interpreters has to be valid and has to be reliable. A quality assurance or a QA doesn't meet that criteria. So I think that's the biggest difference. So if you're talking about a state assessment as an option, those don't always have the validity and the reliability built into them and into their process. For example, in the state of Kentucky, we actually disbanded the QA that they had in place. And the reason for that was that we couldn't defend it. As Cheryl mentioned, it was not defendable in court. So what we did instead was we substituted that with basically language in the law that said national certification testing that is recognized by a certifying body. If I remember correctly, that was the language. And then we kept it very, very simple. We kept it very, very generic so that in the regulations, we could recognize things like the BEI, things like the EIPA, things like RID certification, things like NAD certification. So the language of the law, we kept very generic. Otherwise, we would have to keep going back and making amendments to that law as things change. Shane, did you want to add to that as well?
Sure, I do agree that there must, again, be a focus on the reliability and the validity for that evaluation or certification. Again, if you're told that it's valid, you would like to ask for proof of such validity. I think that's very important because very often people say that, but is it intra-test reliable? Again, has it met all of the metrics and standards? It's very important that it's relative. Again, very often tests become old and invalid. If a test is 15 or 20 years old, is it relative to today? It was relative to 15 years ago. Again, you want to make sure that there's an accountability to the system and that they are updating the test frequently to meet your state standards. The BEI, RID, EIPA, and all of them, you need to make that determination to agree that it meets your standards or doesn't. Don't trust them, but instead make sure that they're held accountable if you have accepted such test or evaluation.
Thank you for the rich discussion for question number 1. Now we're going to move on to question number 2. So, should sign language interpreting licensure be bare bones, for lack of a better word? Should those 18 elements be determined by, hold on, let me double check the question there. Okay, should they, oh, sorry, wrong terminology. Let me go back. Should sign language interpreting any law, should it just be a foundation? Should it include some of the elements, or should it be bare bones and let the regulatory body add the elements it so chooses? What do you think on that? Shane, or Cheryl, I'm sorry, could we start with you?
I agree with your first choice. So again, as the former draft that I saw, it was extremely complicated, 26 something. Personally, I feel that it was that it should be bare bones. Through the regulatory process, you can then go ahead and fill in all of your requirements, all of the elements that you may feel you need. Again, I think there was a lot that was included in the bill. There was oversight, what was permitted. Let me see here. I mean, a basic draft of regulations, if it's too strict, it doesn't allow for the flexibility that you may need for future changes and edits. And that's really key here. As Bobby mentioned earlier, things will change. The world evolves, and you need to be able to respond to new situations that you may not predict. For example, we're now in the midst of coronavirus. You have to be able to meet the world as it is and make sure that we're now providing interpreters online. There's VRS, remote interpreters, video relay. We never predicted these things coming years ago. And if your state licensure is too rigid.
Okay. Oh, there she is. We had a moment there.
Then you would be stuck.
Start at new, Cheryl.
If a new certification emerges, for example, if RID develops a new testing or new certification, then you may not be able to accept that because your law would be too strict. Again, you want to make sure that your rules are flexible and that you can provide changes. You can't predict everything for the future.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, Bobby, did you want to go? Okay, I'm looking at the bare bones approach and it just being a foundational approach versus having, for example, the doors and windows built in. And when I look at those elements, those 18 elements, some of them are not relevant. Some of them most absolutely are. Some of them are very pertinent. Some are not. What should be included within the law itself is first protections of consumers. That's critical. In addition to that, reciprocity, another critical element that needs to be included. Disciplinary action, a way to file grievances. A fourth would be the licensure component, or be it a temporary licensure or certification, whatever your nomenclature is, licensure, temporary licensure, that's key. Also, it needs to be clear who is governing this, who owns it. So those would be your foundational pieces that need to be articulated within the body of the law. However, in very generic language, you don't want to be too specific. I caution you, leave it to the regulators. They will take care of the fine tuning and of the details. For example, as I mentioned earlier, national certification. National certification is a generic term, but in the regulations, we recognized various certifications. For example, EIPA, RID, so forth and so on. So the flexibility is within the regulations. And that's key because we do have some cued speech transliterators, for lack of a better word, in the educational settings. And one huge difference in the state of Kentucky is that we do not recognize, how do you say, substandard. We recognize only national certifications. So it's a little bit different in Kentucky. Now, the Board of Interpreters, they make the determination of what is a national standard, be it, not RID, not NED, or whatever the case may be. They determined, the state of Kentucky made the decision that they will decide. And they already have a grievance process in place, I believe, since, I think it's 18 or 20 years now. And to be completely honest, based on my observations, it's working. It is protecting our consumers. And I'm proud to see that have come to fruition. We've already had 3 grievances filed that have gone all the way up the court system. And interpreters have had their certifications revoked as a result of this. Their license, not their certification, but their license revoked. The one not was held by RID, but the license that they're given in the state of Kentucky. And therefore, they can no longer practice in the state of Kentucky for a 5-year period as a disciplinary measure. And with mandatory Class B penalties. So I think it's important that in a bare bones law, you make sure you include that level B, that 5 years, whatever the case may be in terms of your disciplinary action. And this is for a court in Franklin County. You have to be very, very, very clear in terms of making sure that somebody has to show up, that they have to pay whatever fine, that they have this specific disciplinary action. And it is also posted on the website within the deaf community so that they can see who these individuals are who have had their licenses revoked. So all of this is lined out, and that serves to protect the deaf constituents of the state. And that is all outlined, and that needs to be outlined in the body of it. Okay, thank you so much. Richie, you wanted to add something?
I do. I don't want to repeat what Bobby, Beth, and Cheryl have already mentioned, but at the same time, I think it's important to mention that as we know, the path to licensure has some road bumps. It has some things that we need to consider. So we need to consider how interpreters become licensed. Especially, we want to focus on those marginalized communities who historically have had a challenge to become certified, quote unquote. We need to have an investment in our communities to make sure that they also have the path to licensure available to them.
Cheryl? 2 things I want to add to that piece of the discussion. I feel it's very unique, particularly in Michigan, because normally, how do I say, our rules, our regulations, our license, our process, the legislative process is not always accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing community, as well as the deaf-blind community. Our first priority when we drafted those regulations was that those regulations must be accessible. that the laws themselves must be accessible to all of our constituents. Everything had to be done in ASL. Everything had to be done in a way that was accessible to the deaf and the deafblind community so that they would be able to understand it. And that was pretty much the first time that that had ever happened. We made sure that things were done in ASL as well as in written English. Not only for the rough draft, but for our law. And we continued with the final version to make sure that it was accessible in both languages. Now, I want to go back to testing, because that's something I feel very strongly about. And what I want to speak to is bias. Many of our tests have hidden internal bias that automatically exclude people of color. So that's one thing. For example, if we're talking about the BEI, we need to make sure that things are as bias-free as possible. We want to reduce the bias within the evaluation, specifically of people of color. We want to look at the skills of those individuals. So that's another thing that we need to ensure that our regulations and our rules do, is that they internally have mechanisms to reduce those biases, and that we also need to include more people of color in these processes. Thank you, Cheryl. Shane, did you have something to add?
I do. Thank you. And I agree with Richie and Cheryl's comments. Bobby, Beth, you're all absolutely spot on. I want to go back to the question of bare bones legislation. I strongly suggest a bare bones legislation approach. And the reason why is that all you want to say is we trust the deaf community and the interpreter community to make decisions for themselves. It is self-directed, making decisions. It's a lot easier to be, the self-determination process can be a challenge, but it's much more successful. For example, as Richie Bryant was just mentioned and Cheryl just mentioned, we want to make sure that bias is removed and people of color are included. We've learned this. We know this. We need to make sure that our boards and our regulations show this. It's hard to teach legislators this, and we need to be accountable for the state. We need to protect and include individuals. Again, I think it's very important that self-determination is something that we need to strive for. Again, how the bill is drafted, we need to make sure that it's collectivist and it includes all individuals, parents, children. Again, we do not want an individual stakeholder to come in and disrupt the process. It's happened many times when stakeholders are not involved. That's why I think it's very important to reduce conflicts and problems within the legislative process. Keep it as simple as possible. And then when it's brought to the community, let them make the decisions.
Okay, thank you. That's a key part that I think has been emphasized, is the need for collaboration, as well as the preference for a bare bones approach. Anything to add about question number 2 before we move on? Bobby, please.
I would like to add to Shame's comments. They can be our worst enemy. Allies can be our worst enemy, but in a good way. It's in a good way. For example, the State Department of Education, as we know, you have to work closely with the State Department of Education, because very often what happens and what will kill this is one group. And you need to have them in support of this bill.
Cheryl? I agree 100%. The Department of Education, who I know in my experience, were combative to say the least. Now understand, we often get things reversed. I know in the past, we would be putting students, we would be placing interpreters with very, very young students who didn't have language, who really needed those qualified language models for their interpreters, not only for skill level. It's also a question of power and economics, oftentimes, is how these decisions are made. So we need to reverse the power dynamic. Many interpreters are not comfortable with the equal sharing of power. However, deaf people often have the most to lose and are at the highest risk. And many times we see, how do I say, interpreters, not even always interpreters, but I'll call them signers, who oppress deaf individuals in a variety of situations. So it is critical that your stakeholders agree when they come together and have these discussions about these possible impacts. We initially lost people who had been calling themselves interpreters, but really weren't interpreters. They were signers, really. And many states will probably see a reduction in their workforce when it comes to interpreters. And you will get pushback from things like ITP programs. So it's very important that everybody comes together and works collaboratively. Now, on the positive side, we also know that very often people who are appointed authority, people who place interpreters, the bottom line for those people is really the bottom line. How much does it cost? They're looking at a price point. They're not really looking on qualifications. They're not looking on who is or is not qualified. Oftentimes, the appointing authorities pick the cheapest interpreter, not necessarily the most qualified interpreters, and the most qualified interpreters don't always get the work. So having clearly communicated qualifications so that we know they get quality access is important. Wow, that's another good thing to think about. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Okay, are we ready for our next question? Okay, so question number 3, sign language interpreters. If this is passed and it becomes a reality, who should provide the oversight? Should it be ODHH to make sure that this program runs? Or should it be another regulatory body? So who should oversee sign language interpreting? What are your suggestions? I'll go ahead and pick Richie to go first.
I knew it. All right. Where do I begin? It requires the community to work together. ODHH, I'm not quite sure. Again, we need to have a variety of perspectives within this licensure process. You need interpreters involved. We need the ITP programs, the interpreter trainers. You also need to include agencies, the interpreting agencies who hire said interpreters, and the community. The community is most impacted by those interpreters. Again, everyone has an equal stake in this process, so we want to make sure that everyone is included. I think that's the most important aspect, to have a common goal. And again, we need to make sure that we are protecting our community. It is complicated, but again, we want to ensure. Very often, the agencies are concerned with losing power. Their fear is that they will have somebody looking over their shoulder. So again, they're afraid of being monitored. They want to keep status quo and continue business as usual. Change can be concerning. At the same time, the ITPs are concerned about the number of students. Again, if you have to graduate college and receive a job, you need to meet those minimum qualifications to function in the role of an interpreter. So again, that is a concern for ITPs. The deaf community has a stake in the game as well. They want their due process. They want their right for qualified interpreters and equal respect. It's very important. So it's rough waters we need to navigate, but again, we need to consider the process. And again, not tip the scales in one way or another through the various stakeholders. Who should manage it? Should we go ahead with the grievance process? Should there be mediation? Should it be right to disciplinary action? Again, there's a lot to consider. And should it be one agency to govern them all? I'm not sure. Again, you need involvement from the community. There will be conflicts, and there's pros and cons to that.
Thank you, Richie. Bobby, you had your hand up. Would you like to go next? Sure. Actually, it takes me back to some of the struggles we faced drafting bills in Kentucky. So if you look at the stakeholders equals ownership. And that's very important. The deaf people look to the Kentucky Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing as the entity that should manage this. The interpreters disagreed. The interpreters did not want, the Kentucky Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They wanted a separate independent body running it. The State Department of Education was adamantly against it. They wanted, themselves running it. So there were a lot of different perspectives on this, and all of these different perspectives and all of the discussions that were had, really, I think that went from 93 until, 97, I think roughly that's how long. So we're talking, 4 or 5 years in the process. And I remember distinctly going, to town hall meetings and hearing interpreters fighting with deaf consumers. And really, and it's funny, I see Cheryl shaking her head, but it's true. It really became heated over time in various situations. I think the way to avoid that is egos have to be removed from the conversation. We need to have an authentic, transparent dialogue and discussion. And I think what finally pulled all the people together, it's very ironic, was VR. VR came to the table and basically said, hey, let's talk about numbers here. Essentially, can the group become self-sustaining and self-sufficient? And how many interpreters can we basically put through the pipeline for the state of Kentucky? And the deaf community was really taken aback by some of these questions. Those were things we hadn't considered, we only have one interpreter training program in the state of Kentucky. You need to understand that. And they only graduate about 17 to 18 interpreters a year. So there was no way we were going to have sustainability in terms of certified interpreters in the state. So we had to look at the infrastructure. But ironically enough, that's what sparked the cooperation between these different groups. The Department of Education put in money, other soft money was put in. It helped create 2 more interpreter training programs from that. And the ripple effect that came out of that finally, that spirit of cooperation, it had to come from us coming to agreement and coming to consensus that there needed to be a group of practitioners, quote unquote. But they had to embrace the 51% deaf rule. That's what gave it ownership. And then basically, it became, we call it a policy committee, the PCC, and that included the Kentucky Association of the Deaf, the Kentucky chapter of RID. It also had representation from the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, the Eastern Kentucky University, the Kentucky Department of Education, the Kentucky School for the Deaf, the Kentucky VR programs, and Health and Human Services. Everybody came together. And this policy protection cabinet, for lack of a better word, they looked at our interpreting body. They looked at what kind of policies impact the hard of hearing and deaf community in the state of Kentucky. And then this board of interpreters fell under the Department of Professional Licensure, ultimately. So VR paid for that. Also, the Department of Licensure contributes to that fund. And the reason for that is because we know unequivocally that our number of licensed interpreters was going to be very small and it was never going to become self-sufficient. Okay. We knew this. So everybody put in $25,000 from our state items budget through legislative action. And that was done so that the Board of Interpreters in the state of Kentucky could function. 2 representatives have to be well-versed. One has to be a well-versed deaf person, or one well-versed person on interpreters, and one has to be a CDI. The other members could be deaf or hearing. It didn't matter, for a total of a 7-member board. And they also hired the commissioner for the Department of Professional Licensure and a lawyer to draft the regs for us. And the deaf community, through that policy commission, was able to give feedback just to ensure a level of oversight from the community. And they also established a video grievance process so deaf people could file formal complaints in their first language. That's actually currently being worked on. So all of this, it kind of comes together full circle. Thank you for explaining another perspective on that. All right, Shane, you had your hand up first. Anything you'd like to add in terms of oversight and who should provide it? Oh, I'm sorry, Shane first. Oh, hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Apologies.
I apologize. Yep, Shane first. My apologies.
We have a very similar sign name. Yes. Okay, as I see this discussion happening about which group, which organization should host or who should own and collaborate on this, I want to consider the resources. Who has the resources and the funding? As Beth just explained, funding is a huge piece. Does DLLR have that? Does ODHH have that? Who has the resources and the funding to support this program? Make sure that this will be stable. Again, as a new governor comes in, will the funding decrease? Will it increase? We want stability. We want a long-term commitment. That's very important. We also want to make sure that any kind of program that is offered within the state, for example, you want to look at their current resources. ODHH right now has 3 staff members. Is that sufficient? Can they add more staff? If they add more staff, can they do that? Again, that's something the board needs to consider. As Beth just mentioned, including stakeholders. And Richie said, we need to increase the number of interpreters in the state and make sure that pipeline is open and flourishing. Make sure that the community knows how to file a grievance as well. Yes, there's a licensure process, but make sure all the pieces are moving between the interpreters, the agencies, and the community. It's not just about the deaf community, but the hearing consumers as well. This takes time, it takes money. There's a lot involved in developing this. Right now, interpreters only need to maintain their certification through CEUs. So we need to make sure that the expectations are clear. You have to have the resources available to support this. And if you have all of these pieces in place, that's great, but this will require quite a bit of money. You need to make sure that whichever agency is picked to house this program, it has long-term stability. And again, that's something that you need to consider within this process.
Thank you, Shane, for adding your thoughts to that. Now I'll turn things over to Cheryl. Thank you. I think it's really important to have that board include a lot of diversity, include, for example, parents of deaf children, ITP program members, working interpreters, interpreter placement agencies. Everybody has to have a seat at the table. Michigan made some mistakes. When we created that interpreter board at that time, it really hurt us because, we didn't have the kind of control in the decision-making process that we would have liked to have had. We had almost a 15-month discussion about what the regulation should look like, but the final draft was written by the director and then submitted. And there was a lot of back and forth in terms of editing there and a lot of discussion. And we found it was very important to, sit down with parents and sit down with members of the senior citizen community and sit down with vocational rehab and interpreters in relay and agencies and the deaf community. And I got a lot of feedback at that time. Unfortunately, it's impossible to please everybody all the time. But I think you need to try to do the least amount of damage to the community, put the community at the least amount of risk. And I think that's key. And it really is key how important it is to have a board, because they are going to provide, oversight. When I left Michigan at that time, the responsibilities were turned over to the licensing department. And I'll be completely honest with you, the licensing department didn't know anything about this. Therefore, enforcement became very weak. They did not know anything about interpreting. It impacted enforcement. And the community recognized they didn't have the same level of support that they would have had through, a board that was involved with key stakeholders. So I can't emphasize that enough. You need to have that. And I think that's already in the language of the bill that was written, is bringing together a board of key stakeholders. So that's very, very important. Thank you. Thank you for all of your input and all of your experiences and your insights, for the audience to kind of glean. And I think it helps people envision how we might prepare moving forward and the need for everybody to work together. Now we have 5 minutes left, so I'd like to ask you panelists if you have any additional thoughts, insights, pieces of feedback, takeaway messages you'd like to share. Bobby, you can start.
To do the interpreter licensure bill or to have certification, it is a huge responsibility. And the deaf community must be vigilant. If the program is established, but there's no oversight, it will collapse. It must be stable. You must be vigilant. And again, you want to think of your process. Don't think about the short-term goals. Think about 50 years out, 100 years out. Think about the long-term stability and viability.
Thank you. Fantastic. Anybody else want to add? Okay, Cheryl, please, the floor is yours. I think we need to become educated deaf consumers when it comes to interpreting services. I think we shortchange our deaf community, and we've done so for a long time. We harp on certification, but we never really explain what certification enables us to do. Really, if you think about it, it's the alphabet soup of certifications A to Z, and really people don't understand what the holders of a certification can and cannot do. So I think the issue is educating our deaf and hard of hearing constituents about certification. In Michigan, for example, we had an educational level, we had a medical level, we had a legal level. If I remember correctly, we had a specific deaf blind specialization. So we had various tiers and various levels, and you could rank level 1, 2, and 3 in various specializations. So the board needs to be able to understand what the certifications are, what certifications incorporate which scope, what those practitioners can and cannot do. And I think oftentimes, the pushback is because certifications aren't even awarded anymore. So I think it's very important that we sit down and we have some conversations about who can do what and where in the field of interpreting based on the certifications they hold. Richie, please.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. When you start to get down to work and you really jump into this process, first of all, gather the stakeholders together. And again, ask this one important question. What do you want? That's what it comes down to. What do you want? What are your needs? And then build from there. Many people have their own agenda, and you need to consider that. So you want to consider both their dreams, their thoughts, and their fears as well. And that's something to remember. You need to be transparent within the process. Once the process is transparent, it's clear, then you can work together to develop these regulations. People will feel comfortable. That's my 2 cents.
Perfect. Thank you, Richie. Shane. I think it's important that throughout the process of drafting legislations and making decisions on the details, don't forget consumer anecdotes. We have to remind ourselves of that again and again. For example, I used to be a Maryland resident, and I heard story after story. For example, on the Eastern Shore, story of a teacher and an interpreter, and the interpreter didn't know sign language, and they had the ASL book on their lap, you know, the classic joy of signing, and they were looking up words as they were interpreting. That is not a qualified interpreter. I've heard other stories. A woman goes to the doctor with a health concern, and of course, she gets more stressed because she's worried about the ability of the interpreter to communicate effectively, and that impacts her health. So I think we need to remind ourselves, you know, what we're doing this for. And it comes back to those human stories, the problems that we've experienced. So we need to be a little bit introspective. You know, are we protecting, you know, interpreters? Are you worried about your certification? Are you worried about yourself? No, we need to think about protecting our consumers and the experiences they've had. So we need to remind ourselves, what are we doing this for? Capture those stories, include those stories in the decision-making process. I think that's the important piece of developing any type of certification standards. Now you see, years later, Kentucky has a strong, robust system based on those initial visions, and I think Maryland's capable of that. Absolutely, it's important. Those stories are so important to be told. So I want to thank all of our panelists so much for your input in terms of those three big questions. Do we submit something that's hard and fast? Do we submit something that has a lot of regulatory flexibility? And of course, now I've forgotten the second question. It was bare bones.
Bare bones. Was it bare bones?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you, everybody. The second question speaking to how bare bones or how detailed it is. And the third one talking about oversight. So thank you so much for everybody's insights.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to get started with our survey. So for our panelists, would you mind closing your videos at this time? And we're going to get started with our survey. So thank you all so much. We so much appreciate you being here. All right, everyone. We're going to wait for our QR code to come up. Okay, there we go. All right, thank you. We're very excited to move on, and we're very curious about the community's thoughts. And you'll be able to share those out in our survey. So we have mentee.com. You have the option of either using your smartphone, have your camera ready, like so. And we will show you a QR code in just a second that you'll be able to take a picture of. And this is real-time data collection. So you'll be able to see the numbers change in real time. And it's going to be input from the audience. So you'll be voting using your phone or your tablet, or you can go online. Those are your three options. Now, along the top of the screen, you see www.mentee.com. The code listed there is what you will use if you do the online version. There's no app downloaded that's necessary. Again, we're going to show you a QR code in just a second. 1 vote per question. And those will be coming up on each slide in just a second. Also, just so you know, all voting is anonymous. You'll just see the data reflected in numbers. Are we ready? So I'm going to be using my phone. Go ahead and take a picture of that QR code. And you should see, okay, there's it. There it is. If you see this, okay, just wait a few seconds. Okay, you can go ahead and begin voting. Okay, see the numbers going up there? See the percentages? Okay, 40, there we're at 40. Okay, Facebook seems to be the most popular. Okay, this is exciting. Okay, looks like 88 people watching us right now. Roughly half of those look like they're on. Oh, more results are coming in. Okay, now we're moving on to our next question.
Oh, I see the numbers increasing. Ah, more people from Howard County, I see. Okay. Let's give it a minute. All right. Slow but steady. We see more responses coming in. Oh, Harford County. Let's see, who else? Prince George's County. Okay, we'll give it a minute. Oh, there we are. All right. Ooh, Howard County, 27%, but what a varied representation from our state. Fantastic. Here's our next question. Okay, we see the numbers coming in. Should it be bare bones? Should it be complete? What do you think? It seems that a majority of individuals prefer a bare boned approach with the regulations added later. Okay. Remember the panel, they did discuss and they mentioned the flexibility that this approach gives us. Oh, we have 50 individuals who have responded to this question, okay, in support of the bare bones approach. Majority won, okay. Our next question here, who should draft and oversee the interpreter license regulations? Again, who would have oversight over the interpreter regulations? We have 40 responses so far. Looks like deaf oversight from ODHH. And you now see 51 responses, and 84% of individuals responded are in support of ODHH having oversight. Should we have another town hall? I see the numbers increasing for more town halls, for increased participation, increased feedback. Sounds good. I'm in support of that idea myself. Okay. Okay, sounds good. We've seen our panelists' feedback from their experience, their input. We've now gathered data from our mentee poll. Thank you everyone for participating this evening. It is now time. My time is now ended. I will now pass it over to Kelby to proceed with our awards, the Traditional Legislative Awareness Awards. Thank you. Kelby?
We'd like to thank again the Howard County Association for the Deaf, Baltimore City, and PG County Associations for the Deaf for their involvement this evening. However, we have a short video we'd like to show. Oh, what just happened?
Wow. As we see COVID numbers increasing throughout the state, we realize that we need to wear masks. Please continue to wear your masks. One more message for you. There are many sites throughout the state that are offering free testing. Please keep your family and your friends safe. Please get tested. Keep your masks on. Again, we hope you enjoy this evening's award ceremony. For several years, this is an event to be remembered. It's an event that we look forward to recognize those individuals throughout the community in Maryland who have contributed so much. These individuals have contributed in so many different ways to our community. It's an important time to recognize them. It was a really tough decision to identify and narrow down our candidates to several individuals this evening, but we are very excited. We're excited to have a guest speaker with us this evening. We have our own Lieutenant Governor, Boyd Rutherford. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for joining us this evening. We're pleased to have you here.
Thank you, Kelby. Good evening to everyone. And, I appreciate this opportunity to be part of this event this evening. I wish to thank and congratulate, of course, today's honorees, I should say tonight's honorees, and all of you have been spreading awareness for the deaf and hard of hearing community and helping to improve accessibility in so many ways. The Hogan Rutherford administration is incredibly grateful for the staff of the Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing and all of the advocates being recognized today for your tireless efforts to protect and service the many users of sign language interpreting services. 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. I was just saying earlier, we'll just kind of redo 2020. This will be taken from the Las Vegas line. What happened in 2020, stays in 2020, with the exception of these awards. And so we are proud of all of you for all of your efforts and for making things easier for the individuals that you're supporting. So on behalf of a proud and grateful state, I want to thank you. We are proud of all of you, and you should be very proud of yourselves as well. And it is a tremendous privilege and honor to be able to present the first award this evening, and that is the annual Governor's Kelby Brick Community Leadership Award. I must say, Kelby, how is it that you have an award named after you and you're still around? Normally we wait, I guess it's the gray that's in your beard that we allow that. But the award, of course, was created a decade ago to honor Kelby's lifetime commitment or lifelong commitment. It hasn't been a lifetime yet, lifelong commitment to make Maryland a better place for everyone. And we're very proud to have Kelby as part of our administration. He does a tremendous job. So without further ado, I am extremely pleased to present the 10th Annual Governor's Award to Kirsten Poston, who has been an amazing community leader, advocate, creating strides of differences in Maryland for the deaf and hard of hearing community. I guess Kirsten is on the screen now. Good evening, Kirsten, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kirsten is the director.
A wonderful honor. This is a wonderful honor to receive this award. I believe through all of my experiences and all of the challenges, all of that lumped together, it's for the community, truly. So thank all of you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for providing us with a space, with these innovative tools, with guidance, helping us to break down barriers, to improve our state and the lives for all individuals who live in Maryland. Thank you for this award. I really look forward to continuing my work to improve and change the lives for all Maryland residents. I couldn't do this without the support from many of my good friends, my family, colleagues, to various organizations I've been involved with. I'm honored and I'm very pleased. I appreciate all of you. And I will continue advocating and working forever and advocating for all individuals in the deaf community, both local, state, and national level. Thank you for this award. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kirsten. And just for those who are not familiar with Ms. Poston's background, she is the Director of Career Advancement for Deaf in Government organization. She is Vice President of the Maryland Association of the Deaf and a board member of the Maryland School for the Deaf. She also has served as the first Black elected officer of the National Association of the Deaf. She is, as you can tell, she has tirelessly pushed for opportunities for all deaf and hard of hearing individuals and has been influential on policies at the federal, state, and local levels. So it gives me great pleasure also to know that she, like myself, is a Howard County resident. So I am particularly proud of her from that standpoint and her involvement in the Howard County Association of the Deaf. Kirsten has been a role model. She is a mentor to many, and Maryland would definitely be a far better place if we had more people like her who have spent years serving the community. And so again, I'd like to say congratulations. And I believe that Director Brick has the citation that he will be getting to you at the earliest convenience.
I do have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. Kirsten, thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you for your continued and ongoing support of the deaf and hard of hearing community. Thank you for your support of the Governor's Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Thank you for your leadership in so many areas and your service and your full support of inclusion for all deaf and hard of hearing individuals in Maryland. Thank you.
And thank you, Kelby.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations, Kirsten. We have more awards. Our evening is not yet completed. We thank the Lieutenant Governor for his many years of support and loyalty to our deaf community. Again, we would like to ask my staff to invite various participants to join us for the award ceremony. First, I would like to ask Tracy Ann Hogland, my Policy and Communications Director, to join me. Tracy Ann, please join us. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. As I understand, we have a newly designed award. Well, it's even better. This was designed by a deaf-owned business. That's fantastic. It was designed by Deafroot. It's a deaf-owned business. This will show you the award shortly. It's a beautiful design. I think it's important that, again, we're collaborating, we're supporting our deaf ecosystem, ensure that when possible, we're contributing to the deaf community. I think that's great that we're able to support them and our next honoree. Next, we have our Public Official Award. We traditionally have given this award to a state representative or a state agency, individual, employee who has supported our deaf community throughout Maryland. This individual has really supported access for the deaf community through the Department of Health. She is a leader and the Deputy Secretary, Fran Phillips. She's a longtime advocate and collaborator with our office, ensuring that access is provided in all drive-through testing areas for the state and hospitals as well. Tablets are provided and they're there at the ready. VRI interpreters are available. CDI's interpreters are provided as well upon request. She's collaborated with our office to make sure that the testing websites have ASL videos ready. And on the website for Department of Health, there's interpretation available as well. At marylandhealth.gov, we do have ASL videos informing the public of changes. This is fantastic. Thank you for all of your support, Dr. Phillips.
Fran has retired and she has left a great team at place. And unfortunately, she couldn't be with us this evening. And we're very, very fortunate to have her replacement, Dr. Jin Lee Chan, joining us this evening to receive the reward for Fran. So Secretary Chan, if you wouldn't mind joining us, if you're here.
Yes, hi, good evening. Can you hear? Great.
Good evening.
Well, thank you so much. And
But we see you. Thank you
Great.
for joining us.
I'm pleased to be here tonight accepting this award on behalf of Fran. I know that she sends her regrets. She is happily retired, but you know, I have been had the fortune of working with Fran throughout my career, and I know that her commitment to ensuring access to all services for the betterment of the public's health has really been a commitment that underlies her, all of her work throughout her career when she was in Anne Arundel County and also at the state. I will say that I had the great fortune to work with Tracy Ann and the staff at, under Director Brick when I was working to stand up testing sites around the state, and my team, Kim Heiner and folks with in our Office of Equal Opportunities was really important together to ensure that we had access at testing sites throughout the state. And so that's where we made those decisions with you and appreciated all of the help that you provided to ensure the video translation and the tablets were all available at the sites that we supported across the state and continue to support. And so that was definitely a commitment that we made very early on. And we know that we could not have done that without the support and the assistance from your office. So thank you very much on behalf of Fran and on behalf of the Maryland Department of Health.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chan. And Dr. Chan, may I say, Fran Phillips left behind a huge legacy, and I have been quite impressed with your team. And I need to thank you and thank your team on behalf of our office and the deaf community for all of your hard and continued work. We do know that very often other states reach out to our office in regards to asking how we have worked together with Department of Health to provide access at testing facilities in various places throughout the state. So again, I wanted to let you know that our state has become a model for others. And I just need to take a moment to ask you a quick question. That now we're facing the fight against coronavirus and the rising numbers. And what is the number one advice that you can leave with us this evening? What would you like to share with our community?
Well, thank you for that. And we are, unfortunately, here in this state, much like in other states across the country, seeing an increase in the number of cases and people becoming ill and unfortunately getting hospitalized as well. And I think that it's really important as we go into the holidays, especially knowing how important it is that around holiday times, to connect with people, with your family and loved ones, to try to find ways to be safe while still connecting. And perhaps the video conferencing has become much a way of life as we are finding ourselves tonight. And I think that even through the internet, I'm finding great community with you and with my colleagues around the state. And so I'm hopeful that people, as they celebrate Thanksgiving a week from now, that they find opportunities to do so in a way that's safe, that's socially distanced, that can protect each other from continued spread of this infection. I would also echo, and I loved, I was on to see the videos that your team produced, and absolutely Masks on Maryland is very, very important to make sure that we can keep Maryland open. So those are the key messages that we have right now. We have testing availability. All of that is important. So thank you for that opportunity. So I do hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday season and stay safe.
Thank you again for joining us this evening, Dr. Chan. And again, congratulations to Fran Phillips and the Department of Health. We'll send you the award. Please,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
Our next awardee I would like to call Jacob Salem, our policy manager. Hello, Jacob. Thank you for joining us this evening. Well, I certainly do like your tie. Well, I'm showing my Maryland pride this evening, Kelby. I know there's a lot of people who are joining us. We're very excited to give out our awards this evening. What is this next award, Jacob? Well, our next award is the Spirit of the Deaf Ecosystem. We provide this award. This award is annually given to that organization and that community organization that best embodies this spirit of collaboration. Throughout coronavirus, our world came to a standstill, but there was one organization that persevered through, that again provided different projects. They provided informational blogs. We would like to recognize the importance of literacy. Again, not only was information provided, but it was provided in ASL. And that organization is who, Kelby? Kelby said, tell me, I'm dying of anticipation here. Are you ready? This is the Latino Deaf and Hard of Hearing Association for the metropolitan DC area. Can we give them a hand? Invite them to join us. And here's our beautiful plaque. Thank you for joining us this evening. Wow. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you this evening? Congratulations. Congratulations on this well-deserved award. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Director Brick, for inviting us to be here this evening to participate in this. Also, thank you so much for recognizing the work of LDHH, our organization. We represent the Latino, Latina, Latinx community in the metropolitan area. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the current president of LDHH. I'm Rosa Portillo. And I'd also like to introduce our officers. If they'd like to go ahead. Hello, everyone. My name is Danilo Torres. I am vice president at this time. And I'll say a few words. Really and truly, what can I say? Our organization was really inspired and honored to receive this award. It recognizes the goal and the mission of this organization, and we were so excited. I think the significance of this award is its importance to members of the Latinx community, our former officers, and for Latinos all over. It's an important feeling of pride, and our organization is going to continue to work with all of you, through messaging, through vlogs. I think it's important to continue to spread information, and thank you again for this award and for this recognition. Hello, I'm Sablia Munez Torres. I'm secretary of LDHH. I also have a short message, also very inspired and amazed to be recognized. I think this is our first time getting an award, and it's very, very inspiring, not just for us, but for the Latino deaf community. So thank you so much for recognizing us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Franklin? Hello, I'm Dr. Franklin Torres. I am current treasurer. Excuse my children in the background. As you know, Latino families are very, very physical. They needed a hug before they left for the evening. So again, I was thrilled to see LDHH receiving this award from ODHH. We're honored to be recipients. Our small group of officers has been working very, very hard, throughout these especially difficult and challenging times. To give you a little bit of idea of the activities we do, we meet monthly. Of course, we used to do this face-to-face during COVID. However, we did not stop our activity. We've had to be creative and pivot. And so now we do meetings through Zoom. We do events through Zoom, which has been wonderful. And I think it's important to continue persevering during these times. People are more aware now of the Latino community, education and culture, and particularly during Latin Awareness Month. I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to spread that education. And as you all have mentioned, for the community throughout the metropolitan area, we're here to support you. So thank you again so much for recognizing our organization and the work we're doing.
thank all of you. It's very important work, and it's been ongoing for many years. I've kept an eye on all of the great work that you've done, and I saw your vlogs during the coronavirus pandemic on various issues. Truly, truly, it's important to share that information. It impacts our community, it impacts parents. Very often individuals reach out to our office and they have questions of where is the Latino community? And I always refer them to LDHH. And all of the videos, your content is there, resources are there, the connection with the community. It's fantastic. Thank you for making Maryland a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me invite Tracy Ann back on the screen for our next award. The next award is a new award this year. This is our Youth Activism Award. This award is being given to a youth who is truly active and inspiring for our community. This year, she has participated, and last year, she has participated in the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. Again, that's under the Governor's Office for Crime Control and Prevention. She is the first deaf participant in this advisory council. She's a graduate of Maryland School for the Deaf and now currently a student at RIT, but still involved in the Maryland community. She's been involved with the MIAC, the MYAC Youth Advisory Council. They meet, they learn, and they discuss various topics. And I just leaked her name, Camry Gooding. This is who we're honoring this evening. She's providing education to other Maryland youth on various issues and topics that affect our deaf and hard of hearing community. Again, she's networking and providing a valuable tool for our council. They meet with legislators. They get involved at both the federal and the state policy levels. So thank you, Camry, for being an active participant.
This is our future. That's amazing. Camry, can you come on screen?
Camry,
Camry, can you join us?
there she is. Hello, Camry.
Hi.
Hi. You are our future. Congratulations, Camry. Congratulations. Camry, did you want to say a few words?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Wow. Thank you.
there.
Thank you so much. Really, this has made a big impact on my life. And I think the biggest impact has been the difficulty in finding students like me out there when I was young. Deaf students aren't recognized a lot. I don't think they get noticed very much. And after joining this council, it really struck home with me. Remembering that deaf children can do something, that we need to participate and get involved in the fight. Joining MIAC is one way to do that. I am the only deaf member of the council. I have interpreters that work with me. We have in-depth discussions. And I feel very confident in terms of my participation with the other students. And I think it helps the other students. It educates them, not only about bills and policy and politics, what we're learning, but also that deaf can do things. We've had the opportunity to go to the House of Representatives and to the Senate to pass the Alice Cogswell bill. We've had those opportunities to talk to our legislatures. We've had the opportunities to discuss a variety of issues like IDEA. Some of these issues are specifically about deaf individuals. Some of these issues are about individuals in general who have, additional needs and challenges. So again, being able to participate, talking with the House of Representatives, talking with the Senate, having these discussions at, various universities. And joining college didn't mean that I stopped. I'm very much still involved. I'm still involved in the MIAC meetings. I still participate, even remotely. And I think it's wonderful that we can still come together and have that communication and have that connection. So I'm really, really thankful for this award. I'm very thankful for having participated. To be completely honest, I wasn't sure about joining when I was in high school. I wasn't interested in things like history or government. I felt them to be rather boring, to be completely honest. And a staff member really at Maryland School, at Maryland School for the Deaf. Yep. One staff member then encouraged me to join. And I volunteered. Nobody else was that interested. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I thought, this would be a good way to learn about politics, in a much more real-time way than any history class. And I have to admit, it was a little awkward in the beginning, but after some time, I really learned about the process. I learned how to be involved. I learned how to have those conversations, and it's been one of the best experiences.
Fantastic.
And now I'm ready to hit the ground running and do the work, and it's very exciting.
Congratulations. Real world experience. Nothing beats that. I hope that there's other youth that follow in your stead. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Again.
There needs to be.
Camry, what is your name sign?
Yeah, because of my
Great to see
glasses.
you. What is your major now?
I'm a graphic design major.
Graphic design.
I love it. And of course, I still love government, but my major, my passion, I think both are really near and dear to me. But graphic design for sure.
I'm very impressed with you, Camry, to see the impact that you're making within the state. I work closely with that office, with the GOCCP, which the MIAC is housed under. So they are constantly in touch with me saying what an impact and how much you contribute to MIAC. Thank you. I look forward to you being our future leader. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Camry, you are our future. I believe in you. Congratulations. And thank you so much for everything that you have done. Tracy Ann will coordinate sending the award to you. Okay. Again, thank you. Oh, show it to her again.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
See?
I'm so proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Camry. Wow, that's so inspiring. Jacob, come on back and let's introduce our next award. As Tracy Ann said, Camry's inspiring. I'm inspired. Let's just keep this going. Keep the inspiration coming. Jacob, tell us who the next awardee is. Well, let's see. The next awardee is a very innovative person. Community Activism Award. Very often, individuals go to legislature, they're active there, but this was very creative activism. Not on the political realm, but not yet as an artist, but as expressing. ASL as a visual language. They were recognized, actually it's two individuals, but recognizing the artist. They designed the Frederick Playground. Again, it's a bike rack. So it's a bike rack that's in finger spelling, and it spells out F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K. Yes, it spells out Frederick. They actually were recognized for their involvement in the community. Again, they live in the Frederick area, and they were recognized there. I'd like to have them join us for the award. This is Chanel Boneo and Tiffany Farias. Come join us. Congratulations.
So excited.
It's amazing. Be there forever. Wow, fantastic.
Yes, hopefully. And we hope that bike rack, we hope that we see other towns, copy this idea, and we see more of them in the future in other places.
It's amazing. Can you tell us some more? Some people may have seen that, but tell us more information from behind the scenes. Share with us. How did this idea come to fruition?
Chanel, you want to go? I'll let you start, Tiffany. Okay, sure. Okay, sure. All right. So Pitchcraft, which is essentially a new project It was the Downtown Frederick Partnership. They came up with this idea to give people in the community ways to, give back to the community of downtown Frederick, to install different art installations or music or theater installations in downtown Frederick. It could be a mural on the wall, things of that nature. So Chanel saw that and reached out to me. We were already good friends, and she said, why don't we work together on this? So we thought of the idea. I thought it was a great idea to do something that was art related, that had to do with community accessibility. And it was also a bike rack, so multifunctional. So we were approved, and we were one of the final 4 to pitch our idea to a live audience. So we did that, I think, in October, 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? I believe so. 2018.
Yes.
So we did that in 2018, live audience. We pitched it, all 4 of the finalists, talking about what our ideas were and what did we wanted to do in downtown Frederick. And the audience at the conclusion of the event voted, and we won. We won, and it was very excited. And our project last October came to fruition. Yes, it took 1 year to actually go through the process of actually doing the installation. The project amount was approximately $4,000, which was relatively small. Our budget, we thought, could meet that. Unfortunately, we needed extra funds, so we had to do some fundraising, and we have to say a huge thank you to the Maryland School for the Deaf Foundation. We reached out and asked if they knew any companies who could help us with some grant funding. They did reach out, and it ended up that Shockley Honda was able to donate about, I think, $15,000 to make this project a reality. And we really have to thank, our community for supporting us throughout this. And what's even more exciting is that the bike rack design was designed by a deaf artist as well. His name is David Magnabosco. He actually lives in the Frederick area. So there was so much of the deaf ecosystem involved with this.
Supporting the deaf ecosystem. So you'll see my bike there.
It's bright yellow. You can't miss it.
Yes, absolutely. It's fantastic to see art in everyday life, inspiring our community. The community is inspired by art. It's fantastic. I think it's great. It's visual. We see it there. Frederick has a large deaf population. And again, it's fantastic that individuals are able to see our community there. Thank you. Thank you.
We definitely appreciate it. It's been a wonderful experience, and we're so honored to receive this. Yes, definitely, definitely.
We'll send it We'll send it your way. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Stay healthy.
You too. Tracy Ann, come on back. Our next awardee is the Outstanding Deaf-Owned Business. They provide doula and placenta services, childbirth education classes also in the DMV area that has now expanded to sharing information throughout the nation, all across the US. Information is shared and accessible. She shares resources and also partners with other deaf doulas to provide a network of resources. Again, what a great example of our deaf ecosystem. If you have questions about breastfeeding or childbirth, it's beautiful. They help normalize that. So again, we have our award for both of them. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, hello.
Tell us about yourselves and your business, please. It's fantastic.
Okay, well, really, we started this almost 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. And basically our thoughts and our goal 5 years ago and now, has really grown to reach out to more members of the community, to provide them with the support, meeting the families. Our own personal growth and journey has definitely developed as well. Yeah, before we go on, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Allie Balsley, and I'm Brittany Noches. And what's the name sign for your business? Hand waves. Yes. Deaf woman actually made these shirts for us and for up in Rochester, New York.
That's
so again,
there we are. Deaf ecosystem again.
Ecosystem. Yes, we always want to support the deaf ecosystem, and we try to use it as much as possible. So your comments definitely inspire us every day to do that same thing. So as Brittany mentioned, for the last 5 years, we've been meeting families and working with families, and we wouldn't be here without the support of so many deaf families, we're part of a very special time in these families' lives, part of a very, very rich journey. And it's an honor for us to be part of that. Absolutely. Originally, we're residents of Frederick, and we thought we would serve the DMV area. And when COVID hit, we didn't stop. When things went virtual, we were able to expand our influence and meet people online. We changed our platform, and it's been very successful. We're able to connect with families and provide information, even through this crisis, and we can do it remotely.
Amazing. It's truly amazing, because even throughout the economic crisis that many businesses are facing, there are many who are also thriving and being innovative and finding creative ways to grow and to not only meet the challenge, but to grow and thrive. That's fantastic. Thank you for supporting our deaf ecosystem and being a vital part of this. As we know, you're always involved. You're always a part of that family's life, and you're there from the beginning. That's amazing.
Yes, we've met so many amazing families in the last 5 years, and we look forward to seeing what the next 5 year has to bring. I'm sure a lot more families that we're going to meet moving forward. So thank you so much for this honor. We're very, very excited, and thank you for your support as well.
I really think it's important to mention, because very often we see stories of individuals who receive services from different areas, and they're never quite satisfied. There's always that communication piece that's lacking. And during birth, it's a very important milestone. It's a very important moment of your life. And to not have full communication, again, thank you. Thank you. I wish you were around when my children were born, but what an important job you have. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll send you these awards. Congratulations again. Jacob, come on back. Our next awardee, let's see here. We have the Outstanding Ally Award. This award is to recognize an individual who has been an ally, a pusher, a mover, a shaker for the deaf community, not only at the local level, but at the state level. She networks, she advocates with legislatures, with individuals, policymakers. She's involved in so many different areas, long-standing history of an advocate, not only in the state, but focusing on the EIPA and pushing this to come to fruition. Are we ready to recognize her? Can we invite Dr. Elizabeth Ann Mon to join us on the screen? Congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Mon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your many years of work. You've worked tirelessly on this issue. Would you like to tell us more about your work?
Well, I have been working for 20 plus years to educate and to encourage, and provide workshops specifically for educational interpreters, K-12 interpreters throughout the state. You're frozen.
Dr. Mon, you have frozen. You have frozen. Would you like us, can you back up just a moment? You have worked throughout the state.
Can I get an interpreter on screen?
Absolutely. Just a moment.
My connection is not stable. Thank you. I
get it.
I've been working since last century on helping educational interpreters develop their skills. So I started around 1999 and did everything from mentoring through teaching, through providing workshops and testing on the EIPA, and maintaining a mailing list that is incredibly active. So thank you, Director Brick, for recognizing me and my work. And I thank the ODHH staff for that. It's been a great ride. It's been 20 years of rewarding experiences working with the educational interpreters. And I look forward to about 20 more because I want deaf students in our public schools to experience success in their educational setting. So I thank you for all your support and thank you for the honor.
Congratulations, Dr. Mon. And again, thank you for your continued advocacy to set the standard high for educational interpreters. As we all know, it's important. Interpreters in the educational setting make a huge impact on those deaf children's lives. Language deprivation happens through unqualified interpreters, and you keep raising that bar, and we appreciate that. We appreciate and recognize the work that you have done. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mon. Congratulations. Gracie Ann, you're up again. Our next awardee is the Spirit of the Office Award. This is given to individuals who show motivation and passion in providing education and advocacy to the deaf communication. Again, going back to volunteer spirit. The three of us in the office are very overwhelmed. We want to share information with the deaf community. When we were trying to think about how we could do this and how we could do this efficiently, this individual stepped up. She managed a committee of individuals to produce almost 100 informational videos on COVID and the pandemic. This information was then disseminated through the throughout the COVID pandemic, and we thank her. We thank all of these videos are on our website. If you look at our FAQ page on COVID-19, you can see over 100 videos with different information to share. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy Lynn Ward. Thank you, Dr. Ward. Dr. Ward, join us on the screen, please.
Hello.
Congratulations. Congratulations. And thank you. So many individuals reach out for us. They need information. They need information that's accessible through ASL. Can we produce a video on this? Can we produce a video on that? We share these videos with friends and family. You have contributed so much to the lives of individuals. You contribute so much to keeping Maryland safe. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your hard work.
Really and truly, I couldn't have done it without the amazing team. I have to speak to that. We brought people in. I did not do it all myself, and it would have been impossible to do so. I think really my group, in particular, Lori and Amy, just exemplary in terms of the work they did. They really took the bull by the horns, volunteered, made sure they understood the concepts. I don't think I could have done it without them. So really, really, I have to thank our amazing team. And also those people who, took some convincing, they didn't want to do that because we felt it was important that the faces that were providing this information represented the diverse deaf community that lived here. I thought that was so critical. And there were people that were very hesitant to get involved, but with some cajoling, we finally got them on board. And I'm so, so proud of the work that we've done together. So this isn't an award for me. I accept this on behalf of my entire team and the team of volunteers who really believed in the mission of what we were doing that was charged to us when we were asked to really roll up our sleeves and take this work on. And it's been an honor to collaborate with the GODHH office. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you again. And the Spirit of the Office Award, many individuals think of the office and they think that we do everything. I wish we could, but we don't. And truly, policy change, sharing information, advocacy, all of that comes from the community, and we're invested in this together. You embody that through your tireless work, all of the effort that you've given coordinating volunteers, and I consider you the expert at herding cats. So I thank you. Many people recognize the hard work that went into this project. And again, it's captioned, there's sign language.
And almost 100 videos.
It's completely accessible, over 100 different videos. It's beautiful. And wow, thank you. You make Maryland proud.
Well, it was a joy and our pleasure. And we hope moving forward, we continue with additional projects that are out there. We're more than happy to do so. So thank you again so much for the honor and for the opportunity, Director Brick.
The depth of my heart. I appreciate this. Thank you so much. Wow. Wow. It's inspiring. I mean, over 100 videos produced. Have you seen them all? You know, when Kelby asked me to make a video, it was 20,000 takes. I asked Tracy Ann for help. I still couldn't get it done. So hats off to Dr. Ward and her team. Now, Kelby, are you ready for the next award? Yes, Jacob, let me know. Tell me what this is. This is an award that we give to our individual who shows the most civic engagement. She volunteers our time. She participates at the state, national, and local level. Again, she contributes so much to discussions. She provides testimony. She gives her heart and soul. She's not only a deaf individual, but she shows the true passion and the advocacy for the deaf community. As I said, she's involved in Howard County. She's involved in the legislature. She goes to the state. And that's, again, it's key to changing policy, to making changes. So this award recognizes, Kelby, take it away. Elkie Peters. Elkie Peters, please join us.
Hello.
Hi, Elkie. Congratulations.
Wow, I'm so inspired. I wasn't expecting to receive an award. It's a big honor, I have to tell you. It recognizes the work I've done over the years, which is huge for me to take this. I can't take it on behalf of myself. I really have to share this, with my organization, the Howard County Association for the Deaf, that are so near and dear to me. They're an incredible team of such active advocates who are so involved on so many levels. And they really are my inspiration. And I'm so proud of all of them and the tireless work that they do towards their mission, which is to improve and enhance the lives of deaf people and the deaf community in the state of Maryland. So I'm so excited to accept this. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Elkie.
And it doesn't stop here. I'm going to continue with the work I have done.
Absolutely.
All of us are going to continue. I think I can speak for them in that regard. So
Again, as I've seen, you're involved at the local level, at the state level, and very often when issues arise, you're there. You participate. You're not always loudest voice in the room, but you are there. If there's a local event and we need somebody to get individuals involved and coordinate and collaborate, you are there working behind the scenes tirelessly. I know that you're involved. Thank you.
I believe strongly in collaboration. I believe strongly that's what keeps the community alive and
Absolutely.
thriving. And that's so important. It's such a must for us.
Absolutely. You are a fantastic role model. Thank
I'm
you.
happy
for
to be.
everything
Thank
that
you.
do. Congratulations. Our next awardee is last, but definitely not least. This award is the Director's Award. This award is going to Vicki Porter. Vicki, please join me. Hello, Vicki. The Director's Award is being presented to you this evening because of your history of activism, your integrity, your tireless work to provide feedback and advice while serving on our advisory council, and your role in various other capacities throughout the community. We depend heavily on your wisdom and your insight. During the coronavirus pandemic, we face new challenges. And through your guidance and your advice, as various issues arise, including Black Lives Matter, we've been able to count on you. When the flowers died, you bloomed and you thrived and grew. So thank you. Thank you for your advice, for taking strong positions, being a person that we can depend upon. Again, your integrity, your transparency is key in pushing the state to do better, to make sure that we're more inclusive in various areas, to make sure that we're accessible in all areas. You're invaluable. Behind the scenes, you're working tirelessly to advocate for so many individuals on so many issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brick. I'm very inspired and shocked to receive this award, and I so appreciate it. It is nice to be recognized for one's efforts, but if it weren't for the community, as you know, because really, in Maryland, we want Maryland to be the best state for all deaf and hard of hearing individuals to live. That is, of course, my overarching goal. And thank you so much. I am so honored and inspired. And again, my work will not stop here. I'm going to continue to move forward. I'm always ready to take on the next challenge. So thank you so, so much.
I know you are. You inspire not only myself, but so many others by your countless hours, your volunteerism, serving as secretary on our advisory council. Again, you volunteer of your time. You contribute so much in your role. You're such a fantastic collaborator. I appreciate this and thank you. I look forward to many years working with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful evening. Congratulations, Vicki. Oh, wait. I apologize. We need to show your award.
Oh, that's
We'll
nice. Thank you
send
so
that to
much.
you. We'll make sure you receive this. Thank you. Congratulations again. Congratulations to all of our awardees this evening. Jacob, please join us back.
Congratulations. I'm here. Congratulations. So proud of everyone. Can't beat the presentations. Wow. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm very inspired by everything everyone had to say.
To be honest, it's awe-inspiring to see their heart and their soul given to the deaf community in so many ways and so many different contributions that have been made to make our community better. I can't say enough. Again, very often individuals think it's one or two people who do so much, but it's the community, it's the investment, it's openness, transparency, integrity, advocacy, all of that contributes. Thank you so much, everyone.
You make us proud to do our jobs every day. You know, what we do for the state of Maryland, we love doing our jobs, and it's because of all of you in the community. So we have to say thank you.
So now I believe it's time to bring our evening to a close. We do have one more video that we'd like to share with you this evening. At the conclusion of the video, we'd like to say good evening, stay safe, travel home. Well, be safe at home since we don't have to travel. Remember, masks on, Maryland. Watch the news, keep abreast of what's happening. And if you have any questions, please look out to our website for current information or marylandhealth.gov. Again, you can always go ahead and send us an email at godhh@maryland.gov. Also, keep an eye on our videos. We have more information coming out to share with you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Stay safe. Are you here? Jason?
I apologize.
Jason, come on
I'm
back.
sorry.
Come on back. Stay with us just a moment. What a wonderful evening we've had from our panel to our awardees. Thank you for all the wisdom and all the experience they've contributed to our community.
Absolutely. Yesterday too, you know, and your comments as they tied into today, it's really nice to know what's going on and looking forward to seeing more collaborative work in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for the constituencies, absolutely. Thank you for all of the various organizations from Howard County Association of the Deaf, Prince George's County Association of the Deaf, and Baltimore City Association of the Deaf. Thank you all for joining us this evening. And thank you to all of the honorees and our panelists. Have a great evening.
I will do that. I'll share those thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Director Brick. Take care.
Thank you. There's a lot of rich information that we've learned from last night to tonight. Thank you, all of our attendees, for watching. The panelists, thank you for joining in. All of our awardees who were able to join us, and thank you to everyone. Just wanted to let you know, if you missed last night or tonight's, you were unable to participate. If you missed any portion of this evening's program, do not worry. We have recorded this, and this will be uploaded to odhh.maryland.gov's website /LAD 2020. There's also a YouTube channel where it will be posted as well. If you have any burning questions, remaining concerns that you need to share, you can also email. Let me pull up the email address here. You can send an email to gov.odhh@maryland.gov. Email the office and reach out to them. Our evening's program has concluded, and thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe. I have a socially distant. I'll include myself in this. We ready? Masks on, Maryland.